So that's the first level of validation. Hopefully you've got your looping working out. Notice in this case the switch statement does a lot of work for us because it only lets you pass through if you type in exactly 1, 2, or 3, which is the only things that make sense to us. Anything else you type in, it says choose again and keeps going. So again, if I go through here and I type 22, because that's what I happened on, it's not going to let you do it. I do 1 space 2, it's not going to let you do it. I have to type in exactly one of these guys to have it mean anything. All right. The next field though isn't quite as friendly because without the switch statement, I can type in nothing. I could type in junk. I could type in a bunch of spaces. I could type in 1 character where I might want more than 1 character. I'm not going to even kill it here. If I type in not a number, that would really kill it. I'm going to put those numbers in. But notice here, username is a bunch of spaces. That's not a valid username. IP address. I don't have an IP address of 1 character. I'm expecting more than that. So I have to do more for validation. But I can build upon the concept here. The looping is the first step. So let's jump over to start simple. Let's go to our command line helper because that's where all of our code is. Let's just make sure for the IP address, let's make it required. Let's just say, hey, this text is required. Let's get past the how many characters go into it for a moment. Let's get past the formatting of numbers and dots and things like that. Let's make it required. So how do I do that? Well, I'm getting the field right here for the IP address. It's there if a couple of scenarios is filled. So if IP address, oops, sorry, I need a parenthesis there. IP address, nope, dot length is greater than 0. So if it's greater than 0, it's good. So actually, if it's less than or equal to 0, it's bad. So at that point, I can say system.out.println IP address is required. Okay, so that's my validation, except I know I need to loop on that, right? Because we just learned about that, so I need to do while true or some other form of loop. If it's 0 or less than 0, IP address is required, else, oops, let me come back to the previous line. Darn it, my fingering is fat today. Else, at that point, I'm going to break. So I can leave the loop if it's valid. I might want to switch my logic back. I could say if it's greater than 0, break. Oops, I don't want to have to type that again. Break. And then otherwise do that. I mean, so either way, the logic's the same. You just got to make sure your logic's consistent. So I'm prompting you to get the IP address. I go get it. If it's greater than 0, then break. Otherwise, it's required. All right, so let's test our code here a little bit. This is basic validation here. I have a loop, circle around it, and make a check. So guest number 1, IP address. I hit enter. Yep, IP address is required. Excellent. And then it prompts me again. Welcome guest. Please enter your IP address. Let's see. What if I do space? Just 1 blank space. Oh, thanks. How many times you visited the site? So it takes a blank space as an IP address. So just being greater than 0 isn't good enough. What if? How do I get rid of white space? Well, there's actually a method for that. There's a method called .trim. Control space, and let me show you what .trim means. So .trim is returns a string whose value is the string with any leading and trailing white space removed. All right. So the trim will, if I say space, 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 Tony, space, 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 it will return just TONY. If I do space, 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 Tony, space, 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 LOWE, it will return Tony, space, 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 LOWE. Not middle ones, but outside ones. It'll trim away. At this point, you have to be aware that the trim validates it doesn't actually take out the extra white spaces. If you actually want the extra white spaces gone, you might want to put your trim up here instead, with the risk that if this could return null, which I don't know that it can, it could get you an exception. So that's just something to be aware of. This is not necessarily the best code. The better code for this would be to trim it afterwards. And probably what I would do is to set at this point as well. But so either way it could be done. But let's go through and test this real quick. So what type of customer are you? 1 for guest, 2 for existing. So we're a guest. Enter your IP address. Enter. Oh, IP address is required. Space, 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 space. Oh, it's still required. Space 2, space, space. And it takes it, visited the site 3 times. Gorgeous. So again, it takes space 2. It's stored space 2 inside of there, but at least it's now validating it. It's making it required. It's something I have to type in. Excellent. So not only do I want the IP address required, I need required on a bunch of stuff down here. First name, last name, username, IP address. Wait, I have to copy and paste that, right? So I guess what I can do is I can take all this logic. So how many lines of code is this? 12 lines of code here. I can copy and paste that a number of times down here. So add 60 lines of code or so to my application. That is a perfectly reasonable option inside there. It's not a very good option. So let's pull out that same strategy we had before. We created our helper method down here. Let's create a helper method, private string. We're going to get a string, get required input. And we need the scanner to come inside of there. So now, let's say what I'm going to do instead is copy this stuff, put it down here, and once I have it, I can say return, IP address. We want to get input, though, so let's just do this, string input, and then change this to be input. And this could be input. And then down here we can return input. All right, so we're going to get a required input inside of here. And so I can take up here, I can change this to be IP address is equal to get required input. Cool. So now I've simplified my code quite a bit here. So down here, is on my code. Let's try this. Let's run this again. So we're a guest. My IP address is empty, space, empty, still saying the right things. Put something inside of there. Number of times I visited, 34. Look at that. It's passing it in. It's doing everything else. That's excellent. That's excellent. So I now have simplified this code. So when I say we get info from user, guest info from user, I say, IP address. Go get me that required input. Number of visits. Well, we'll deal with that integer in a minute. We'll come back to that. So let's come down here to customer. So what if we said here, instead of get next line, what if we said get required input? That'd be kind of cool, right? So I replace that. Let's go to common customer. So we'll do a number 2 this time. Wait, what? Welcome guest, enter your IP address. Please enter. Oh, wait a minute. Look at that. That was really confusing there when I looked at it. It says, welcome existing customers, please enter your first name. Welcome guest, please enter your IP address. What happened there? Oh, well, we had this prompt inside of here still, right? Well, there's 2 ways I can deal with this. Again, this is a design choice. This is however you want to do it. One of the ways you can deal with this is I can, like we did here, have the prompt be on the outside. So you prompt and then you ask for it. Or if I know, the problem with that is, so if I put in the wrong value here, it's going to go say, welcome, give me the IP address again. Or it would give me nothing inside of there. So I have to be careful of that. I have to be careful what's going on there because I don't know what the best option is. I could go either way. So as an alternative to that, what I could do is pass in the prompt. So let's actually Control C. Is that going to work? Nope. Let's just go run stop. I don't have to finish that one. I just stop my run right there. So what if instead I said get required input, comma, string prompt. And here I'm going to print out the prompt. Oops, I'm going to copy this prompt because I'm going to need it up above. Copy this prompt. So now I'm going to prompt you every time I ask you before it, and if it's required, I'm going to go prompt you again. That's a pretty good pattern right there, right? So up here, when I say get required input, oops, let me go all the way up here. When I say get required input, I do comma and paste here. Oh, shoot. Let me copy this. I accidentally hit the wrong button. All right. Paste this here. Now, I don't really want to say welcome guest every time, so I'm going to say please enter your input, and then up here I can put string, oops, system.out.println welcome guest. So I welcome the guest, then I ask for your IP address over and over and over again. Print line. There you go. Then I ask for it over and over again until I get it. Then down here, I can move this prompt into, I can fix this prompt at the same time. Get rid of that silly, oops, colon there. And then I can get the user input each time. Now, oops, in comma. There you go, better. So my solution then for validation is I can create a nice little helper method to say get required input. And so for my required input, I can prompt over and over again and then get the IP address. So let me go off and just make sure everything works. So let's say I want existing customer. First name is, nope, I don't want a first name. Oh, there, IP is, did it say IP address is required? Oh, it did. Let me change that real quick. Input is required. We could actually pass in another prompt if we want to do that there. Just say input is required there. So please enter your first name again, space. Please enter your first name again. Okay, I give you something finally, and then it moves along. Now it's happy. Username, IP address, visit the site. Boom, there, now it's working. So very simply here, I can now go through and replace each one of these things to make them required by putting this line inside of here. So oops, man, my fingers are really overly slamming this keyboard today. So I could say, instead of here, I could say get required input, now your last name. And then work my way right on down the list. All right. So I change this to be get required input here, and this could be get required input here, and then I can change this prompt down to here. So the point being is with the validation, I'm actually making this even simpler of code by abstracting out the validation rules, and now I've just got a bunch of lines say go get this, go get this, go get this, go get this. I could even simplify this code further. I don't necessarily need these variables. I could go get it and set it directly into the variables. I could have this code be really, really thin. I'm not going to worry about all that. All right, so now play with this. Get a validation method working. Start with something as simple as just making a string required, and then you can go from there.